Hello! So, I've never mentioned it on this channel before, but before starting my businesses, I worked in film and I got my master's degree in film production from the University of Southern California. For those of you who don't know, USC School of Cinematic Arts is sort of a big deal. It's nicknamed the Harvard of Film School, and many of my peers from grad school are now working on big Hollywood productions. One of them in particular has blown me away. She's a mother of 4, and against all odds, she has written and directed 3 feature films and has worked with A-list actors. I am so excited to be featuring her in this video and share her story. Stick around to meet the lovely Anna Elizabeth James and hear her take on making it in the film industry. I'm Sabrina and I'm the creator of L'Atelier Co-working and the Focus Journal. I am always looking for the best ways to optimize and organize my business and personal life, which is why I have created Tidy Living. If you want to get inspiring content and tips, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell button to get notified on upcoming videos. Hi, Annie.
Hi, how are you, Sabrina?
Good, thank you for joining me on Zoom. I haven't seen you in a really long time since film school. I have been following you on Instagram and seeing all your progress. You're directing feature films and writing them as well. Maybe you can start by telling more about yourself and your journey on how you got started as a writer and director and where you are now.
Yeah, no, this has been fun, and it's been fun to see you progress too over the last, what has it been, 4 or 5 years? I mean, time goes by so fast. I don't know how old you were, but I was 29 when I got to grad school, and I had done a lot of different things. I had become a mother. I had dabbled in different industries. I flipped houses. I just sort of dipped my toes in a lot of different things. I had children. I was a mother, young mother, like where you are right now. And I was just trying to figure out what I could do with my ambition. I knew I was a very ambitious person. Around probably 23, I set off on this journey of really asking myself some hard questions. And I ended up deciding that I was a novelist. I was like, okay, I'm gonna write novels. It'll be a great thing that I can do while I'm with the, home with the kids. And I didn't know if I could write, but I knew I had a little bit of talent. That started my journey, and I started a novel. It's gonna be the greatest thing. It's this great idea I had, and I started writing it, and it was, I look back on it, it's like terrible, but it's not terrible, but you know what I mean. And I wound up in a writers group in San Francisco. I was living in Northern California at the time on a ranch, and this screenwriter invited me. He's also a novelist. He happens to be a mentor to the Pixar directors, and he invited me to the writers group, and he said, well, bring your pages and we'll read them out loud. And I was like, awesome, great. So I journeyed from the countryside into the big city, and I'm probably 27 at this time, 26, and I have my chapters, and I go to this, distinguished writers group with other novelists that live in the San Francisco and all this. And so the way they do it in this group is they read their pages aloud, and they read them really fast, like no emotion, just really fast, because they want to plow through everyone's ideas and give feedback. It's just like a community, right? And so my pages came up, and he started reading them. His name is James D'Alessandro, and he takes his glasses off and he looks right at me and he goes, "You're not a novelist." And I was mortified, and I was nervous, and he goes, "You're a screenwriter." And he's like, "You need to talk to me after." Yeah. And I was like, "Screenwriter? What is this?" And so afterwards I talked to him, and he said, "Yeah, you need to go to Columbia or USC, like even UCLA would be great." And I said, "Well, what makes you say that?" And he's like, "You just write very concise. You hit your beats fast. You write like a screenwriter." He's like, "You could be a novelist, but I'm just telling you right now, you have the knack of screenwriting." And so that was really special, because you're hearing it from someone who mentors the Pixar directors. And so thus began my deep dive into what is a screenwriter.
Could you imagine like what would have happened if you didn't have this aha moment, and if that person, the Pixar mentor, didn't tell you like you're a screenwriter?
I think about that a lot because I'm 41 now, so that's like 14 years ago, right? And I can actually pinpoint specific moments. Mm-hmm. Obviously, you have to be open and aware and listening to a mentor who's talking to you, right? So that's step one. But step two is like, who is in your bubble and who are you surrounding yourself with, and who's feeding you energy? Mm-hmm. And the more as the more time goes on, the more I think about that and how we have to, no matter where you are in life, we have to figure out and protect, our spaces and what is being fed into our minds, because it does affect you, and the people you bring into your world. And James D'Alessandro, I actually met him at a film festival. We were in line together to listen to the Pixar directors talk with John Lasseter. John Lasseter at the time was running Pixar. And that's how I met him. And that's how he invited me to that writers group. I'm not saying I wouldn't have found filmmaking, but yeah, it is an interesting question.
The big question is basically, there's a statistic that from the 100 top movies, only 10% are female directors.
Yeah.
Only 10% of the directors of those films are female directors. And probably most of those female directors are also, they grew up in this Hollywood background and surrounding, and some of them were famous actresses and then became directors. And you're pretty much a self-made film director and writer, and you're also a mom. Do you find that, you're a lot of the times you're out of place, or, how is your interactions with other people in the industry, and how do you get producers to trust you as a filmmaker and writer?
Mm-hmm. This is a big, big topic that I could just bore you to death on. I could talk about this forever, and I've analyzed it from so many different angles. You'd have to go back to my childhood a little bit, where I was just taught that if you want something done, you just go do it, right? And I was sort of surrounded. Luckily, I had parents that just created this like bubble of belief that it doesn't matter if you're a female or a male, you just go do it. So when you reach adulthood and you look around and everyone's like, it's going to be so much harder for you. And I'm like, what are you guys talking about? I think around 31, 32, up to 35 years old, this is after grad school, I finally felt what everyone was talking about. Like I had this like ultimate belief that as long as I put my mind to it, I can do it. Like nothing will stop me. It doesn't matter. I'm a woman, blah, blah, blah. And then it hit me really hard in that right after grad school. I was at the time with a partner whose commercial directing career had taken off, and I was going to big industry parties, and I sort of saw, you would look around the room and they all kind of dress the same, look the same, have the same energy and vibe, and they're all these men who are helming these big time commercials. And we did this whole thing with the iPhone. Everyone just assumed I was the producer, or I was, second to my partner, who is, male. And it sort of all started to come clicking into my mind what everyone was talking about in a way that, and I always like to solve a problem, and I always noodle my way through, and I'm like, how am I going to crack this cookie? How am I going to supersede, and I even found that women do it to women.
Yeah.
Subconsciously. And that blew my mind. Questions like, well, how are you going to do this with kids? It's like, but how do fathers do it with their kids? They don't get those questions in interviews. So why are you asking me that?
Yeah.
I have my world figured out and buttoned up. You don't need to worry about my home life. You just need to worry about the work.
Mm-hmm.
You need to ask me how I'm managing that. And so, and I was so surprised that women were even doing it. So I would sit and think about this a lot. And I sort of came to the conclusion that I needed to treat filmmaking like a sport,
Mm-hmm.
right? I decided that I would treat it like a sport in that I will have high stamina. I will outwork anyone in the room, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if someone's working 100%, I'm going to work 140%. If someone's spitting out this many scripts, I'm going to spit out 2 extra scripts a year.
Mm-hmm.
I just decided that I would treat it like a sport, and I just put my head down, and maybe I'll come up for air and I'll land somewhere, right?
Mm-hmm.
And anyway, so that sort of worked for me. I ended up getting greenlit to do a family film, which, funny enough, people kind of teased me for.
Mm-hmm.
Like, our cohorts from school were like, you didn't go to film school, to make these little family films. And I mean, they would tease me in good fun, but it was like a jab, like, you're going to be stuck there. You're never going to you're going to be in that area. You're going to be in that family zone
Mm-hmm.
jail, and you're never going to make your art. I went to school to make thrillers with heart, or thrillers with, compelling characters, and going through, interesting things. And I said, you know what, but I have kids, and I can do this. Can I make this genre fresh and original? It was like the challenge to myself.
Yeah, and everyone has to start somewhere. And it was a good exercise for you. And those people who were, mocking you, what did they do, right? Did they direct a feature and write a feature? I don't think so. So, so tell us about the recent feature that you wrote and directed that features Kristin Davis. How was that working with an A-list actor, and your whole process? Like, how did it come about?
Yeah, so Kristen Davis is incredible. Dermot Mulroney, who plays her husband, is incredible. Shanola Hmapton, Greeg Grammer, the whole cast. I had a tremendous experience. So I did 2 family films. And again, everyone's like, you're going to be in family film jail, meaning you're not going to be able to break out. You're not going to be able to do anything like, really bold, because you're in this lane now. And I did one, and then I did the other one because I figured an investor or investors would look at that as like a bona fide bet, right? And so I focused on making sure the script was as good as it could be, right? I wanted to make a script so powerful that they don't even care who wrote it. They just want to be a part of the script.
Yeah.
Right?
Makes sense.
And so when the script went out, I already had Greer attached, because Greer and I worked on the first film together, and she actually was she was sort of the inspiration for this film. She was sort of like a muse. And so we went out to the town, and it was considered a hot script, but nobody knew who Anna Elizabeth James was. So we had, we had a little bit of difficulty in getting some momentum. But Kristen's people and a few other, actresses reached out, showing great interest, how much they loved the script. And I decided to dig deep into Kristen's history before Sex and the City. And I sort of was astonished to find that she has this whole rainbow of color, right? Other than that character on that show. And so, and then I couldn't stop imagining her as playing the lead role. I could see the scenes, and I could see how it would be so compelling and interesting for the audience. And then I would imagine her with Greer, and then it was just so clear to me that I was like, I'm not making this movie without her, So I wrote an impassioned letter, and I said, please come on this journey with me. And it was a leap of faith, for sure.
Yeah, and you had to also like have faith in yourself that you are able to take on this new challenge and step up your game as well.
Yeah. Again, it goes back to, is filmmaking a sport, right? And And I was ready. I did enough probably self-talk, like every day during the process of writing the script. And I knew what we were up against, but I also we wrote the script simple, and I had done a lot. I had done a few shorts that were thrillers. So I felt this is another thing that I would love to just like, embark on anyone who's like going along in life and just wants to get to that end point, especially if you're in motherhood, because the days can be long and the journey thankless. To be honest, I would encourage you to not skip any rungs on the ladder, because skipping them will only hurt you in the end. Like, I think there's wisdom in taking the time to go into each step, meaning learning every facet. If once you've found your thing, like really dig deep, because in the end it's going to prove fruitful. And I think this movie that we just completed is such a culmination of all of that. There's no way I could have done it if I had skipped any rungs.
Definitely. Yeah, basically, like, take your time and do the work, because like right out of film school you probably wouldn't have been ready for a challenge this big, and you would have not done it correctly.
Right. I wouldn't have been able to do it. I mean, I would have, but it wouldn't have turned out as well, I think. So I'm glad I did my little baby family films, and a couple thriller shorts, and a pilot, and the iPhone stuff, and all these different things, because it just built me up to this point. And I could walk onto set and just have the confidence that we're gonna make our days, it's gonna be great. So much positive, so much of filmmaking is also positive energy, and all of that.
I would love to know a little bit more about the producing aspect of that recent film. So you wrote the script, you got some actors interested, but then how did you get it funded? How did you get a production company behind it?
So after I did those 2 horse movies, the family films, right? I was able to find a wonderful partner and investor to invest in my development company. And the idea is the development company pays me to write, and then that company owns those properties, right? And so then once we go get it made, then we create a different company under that specific IP. So Deadly Illusions is its own company. And I had no plans of producing. I just wanted to direct and write. So I go out and I am getting lots of great feedback, but either folks are already booked, or they say, this is amazing, this is going to be a great movie, I just am not a producer for you. So I probably got 6 to 8 no's. And as I'm moving along, because it takes time for people to read, to get back, to have, as I'm moving along in the train, it's now July, August, September, and we're going out to talent. And then before you know it, we have Kristen attached, we have Dermot attached, and I'm going to New Mexico scouting, and I've already recruited half the team. And Michelle, my production lawyer from Ramo Law, just said, Annie, I think you're producing this movie.
You are producing, yeah.
And I was like, oh yeah, I think I am. And then it came down to the point where we were 4 weeks away from shooting, to hire a producer and get them caught up. Because I was dealing with contracts every day. I was, there's so many things going on. It was just quicker for me just to do it, get it done.
Yeah.
And so I will say this, though, I had an incredible line producer, incredible UPM, incredible co-producers. The people around me were just the best army. I really can't take all the credit. It's just that none of those folks were there from beginning to end. But I will say this, there were moments on set where it hurt us that we didn't have a producer besides me, right? Because I'm focused on the story.
Mm-hmm.
And so I learned a big lesson there. I felt like I don't have regret. I wouldn't go back and do it again, because to hire a producer, we'd also lose a big chunk of our budget, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I was working so hard to make every penny go so far. And I also only took a writing and directing fee. So I didn't take a producing fee because I wanted to save the production that money. And I'm so glad. I just wanted to get as much money on the screen as possible.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm proud of what we did. I feel like it was my MBA. I won't ever do that again. I will always be a producer on the films I make, if I can, knock on wood. But I'll never be the lone producer.
Mm-hmm. And you know what this reminds me of? Being a mom. Because you're doing so many things at the same time, and you have your babies, but your work and your personal life and your relationships and all that. And I guess it makes you better at juggling, and people see being a mom as a disadvantage in work, but actually it makes you more efficient. It makes you more involved, I guess. And it has so many different advantages. Can you speak a bit about how you balance work and life as well?
Yeah, well, you can imagine now. I mean, you can imagine me back in film school when, let's just go grab a coffee, or let's just go. And I'm like, I don't have time for that.
Mm-hmm.
Like if there's any extra minutes I have, I should be writing, or I should be, the equation of time, the value of time completely changes.
Mm-hmm.
And so in a weird way, it becomes the greatest gift.
Mm-hmm.
You're amazed at what you can accomplish.
Yeah, there's
And
no more
like,
time.
if I can do this in this amount of time, imagine, it's mind-boggling at your potential. Yes, I completely agree with you. And it's funny because I how you apply for those directing initiatives, like NBC has one, and Warner Brothers, and I
Mm-hmm.
constantly applying to those and paying the $35 fees. Woo! And there was one I had to apply. You have to write a letter on why you think you'd be a great TV director, great director in TV. And I created this huge thesis on how TV directing is very similar to being a mother or being a parent. And I went through all of this, the similarities and everything. I thought it was the greatest thing I had written. And I'm like, I'm for sure going to get it. I'm for sure going to get this initiative. And no, I didn't get it.
But what were some of the similarities?
I think directing is really about honing in on your actor's energy and where they're at. Each actor has their own thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Much like the 4 children I have, they're all different.
Yeah.
And they all need something a little different. And if you're paying attention and you're listening, really listening, you can cue in on that and you can help them along, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, directing is so similar to being a mother.
Wow, I had never thought of that before, but it makes sense because there's so many very subtle nuances when you're raising a child, and you have to know when to be strict versus when to be loving and cuddly. And I guess it's the same thing with directing. You have to really be in tune with the actor's feeling and their character's development as well. Right.
I mean, for me, half of the job is just watching their eyes.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to read where they're at emotionally and what do they need from me
in
this moment. Like most of the time, what they need from me is to be quiet.
Mm-hmm.
Just like with your children, if you're constantly like this and this and you have to be this, it's like sometimes the best parenting is to let go
Mm-hmm.
and just let them be.
Mm-hmm.
But you're right there and they can turn back and they can trust what you're about to say. And so to me, it is the same job.
Mm-hmm.
And so in a weird way, even though I had children young, which was a big deal for me because I was an only child and I just wanted my own little gang, I had children young. That was something I really wanted to do. I feel like I got my core education there.
So maybe you can give some advice to any mother watching right now, a mother who has like a lot of ambitions, but she thinks, she's overwhelmed with just being a mother. What would you tell her?
Ooh, that's a great question. Um, so life has seasons, right? And this is a season of your life.
Mhm.
And everyone says it goes by so quickly and all these things, and that's true. But while you're in this season, you're going to have feelings and impressions and ideas that come to you that won't come to you in a later season. So I think my biggest advice is to have a little notepad next to your bed and to write things down, so you can talk to and get into the headspace of your younger self.
Mhm.
And that has been so good for me. It's closely related to self-care and your own mental well-being. We as women, we are so hard on ourselves.
Mhm.
I mean, forget just society. We just want, I think it's very tribal instincts to hold down the fort, to take care of everyone. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. It's just that, people, when people say, oh, how do you do it all? I say,
Mhm.
I don't do it all. Last week, I did, In-N-Out Burger and Chick-fil-A for dinner. This week, I actually made a home-cooked meal. You can't be everything all the time. It's humanly impossible.
Mhm.
So I like to call them targets,
Mhm.
right? It's like a game of darts. What is your target? What is your target this week or this month? Hit that target, pat yourself on the back, and don't worry about all the other targets that you never promised yourself you would hit. And I really want others to not beat themselves up. And you're
Mhm.
going to make mistakes as parents, but those kids, man, they are resilient. They forget. They love you. They'll move on. Just keep going. Do the
Yes.
best you can. And definitely having these conversations and absorbing or being around these kind of conversations will help you
Mhm.
get through whatever you're trying to get through.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, thank you very much.
Thank
I'm
you.
gonna let you go back to writing or whatever it is that you're gonna do next.
We've had so much fun. Thank you so much, Sabrina. I love you. I love everything you're doing. And I'll see you hopefully in Canada or LA. It's been fun. Thank you so much.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
Have a
Okay.
good one.
Bye.
Bye, Annie.